I promise I will explain where I'm going with this, by the way. I was out skiing in Canada for the past little while, and it's interesting because I used to ski quite a lot, but I was never a great skier. I was more kind of a hack skier, and I decided to take some lessons and improve my technique and that sort of thing. And so at first there was a process of kind of taking things that I already kind of knew how to do, picking them apart, then putting them back together. And at first it felt kind of clunky. And for me, especially with physical activities, I have a stage I go through where I'm kind of like, oh, I'm frustrated, this isn't working, and so I, shut the fuck up, and there's another part of me that's had some experience of this stuff that goes, trust the process. And so I go, okay, so I keep doing the stuff that's been suggested and keep going to the lessons and that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, at a certain point, it's like the unconscious takes over and this stuff's integrated and things start happening. And I'm like, oh, and it's very much as AJ describes. I'm kind of, absorbed in the activity. Then I go, oh, look, it's happening. Oh, great. Internal dialogue, over-reliance on focal vision. So, happiest moments of your life, and you feel fantastic. I mean, who wouldn't want that? I'm curious, having the happiest moments of your life, why is that important to you? Experiencing the happiest moments of your life, why is that important?
I can't think why I wouldn't want to be in that state permanently. I mean, I want to be in that state permanently. Sure.
Because it's important to you, and you enjoy it. Of course, you feel fantastic.
I'm not sure about understanding I'm not understanding important in... I've got to... I'm thinking about some of the happiest moments, and some of them are work moments, and not just goofing around on slopes and things.
Sure.
Okay. This is a bold bit of sharing. It's important to me because I felt 3 times in my life I felt at the lowest possible, to a point where I didn't want to continue. And being in that happy state is fantastic, because in that happy state I will always want to continue.
Mm. And it's nice to know, isn't it, that whatever states you may choose to visit from time to time, you have that experience of knowing that there's a place where you will always want to continue.
I think the big thing for me about NLP has been the ability to choose that.
So,
conscious choice.
So if you were going to sum up why this is important, it's because there have been places where you didn't want to continue, and in this space you always want to continue.
The most important thing is not the comparison, it's the fact that I can choose.
Yeah. And it's nice to know, isn't it, that you've always got a choice. Yeah. Cool.
But there's an academic knowledge of having a choice, and demonstrating that ability to myself every day.
Absolutely. And every day that you do choose in that way is a further affirmation that you have that as a demonstrable skill, not just as an intellectual construct.
For the low points, I felt as though I didn't have a choice, that I was powerless in those situations.
And there's a presupposition in that, which I think is in it. The presupposition in what you've just said is incredibly powerful, which is that in knowing at a deep level that you have a choice, then you always have power, that choice is power.
Yes, that's what I would rewrite the end of that, is that I wouldn't say that it's not powerless, it's that it's powerful. It's like Frankl in his book. You can always just mind that gap between meaning and event. That's the most powerful thing for me.
Sure.
Is that ability to make that choice.
The ability to make that choice. Now, I think that this is probably the place where any right-minded individual would stop asking that question. So I'm going to ask it again. And despite the fact that it probably seems almost rude and intrusive on one level to ask that question again, I'm really curious to know, having the ability to make that choice, knowing that you can choose this, not being powerless, but rather being powerful. Why is that important? While AJ continues to ponder that, what's one of the things you've noticed has happened more and more as we've moved further down the list?
Values, aren't we?
It's one way of talking about them, yeah, absolutely. What have you noticed in AJ's responses in terms of the non-verbal stuff?
Processing time has increased.
Yeah, the processing and time has increased.
A lot more still.
Become a lot more still. What about flushed cheeks? What about his breathing?
Less visual.
Less visual. More kino. Also known as trance. Going into a deeper and deeper trance state to access these deeper and deeper core values, you could say. So, yeah, what are some of your ideas about why that's important? What came up, or what did you discover when you asked that?
The first answer was that it meant I was alive.
And the second answer?
The next thing that came in is that a dumb answer. It was the internal dialogue, but it's a proof of life.
Means you're alive. And what does it mean that you're alive?
That I still exist.
Thank you. And that's good to know as well.
It is useful in the morning, yes.
Yeah. And the reason I wanted to take you guys through this, well, there's several reasons. There's some stuff we're going to be doing later on in the weekend that relates to this. But when I was out in Canada, I met up with a guy called Joe Stumpf. And Joe runs a big real estate training company, basically training real estate agents and mortgage brokers how to run ethical, successful, abundant businesses. He's got a very ethical, successful, abundant business doing that. And one of the things that he teaches them to do is, when it comes to influencing people, he says, you need to get down to their 5s, 6s, and 7s to really be consistently influential in an influence relationship where you're looking out for their best interests and that sort of thing. Because that's what's really important to people, is those 5, 6s, and 7s. I pretty much can guarantee that if I'm talking to AJ about things that can allow him to continue to increase his happiness, his sense of choice, and that sense of being alive, that's going to have power. More power than something which he really wants, saying, I can help you increase your level of elegance, which is great, doing NLP and in your life.
Well, the elegances are nice to have.
That's the real stuff, And then the nice thing about that elegance is it's one of the many ways you can allow yourself to continue experiencing the happiness, the sense of choice, and the real sense of being alive, really knowing at the deepest level that you are. And there's a different response in those kind of those ways of framing it, because this is what motivates people. This is what motivates people, to use AJ's words. That's a nice to have, but that's the stuff that really does it. Now, the challenge that Joe sometimes has is people say, "Oh yeah, but getting down to that level of feels almost kind of uncomfortable asking those questions." And I was listening to a guy, and he made a very interesting point. He said, most people are more interested in being liked than they are in giving value. See, I know that in a conversation with AJ, I can give him real value because in this process of discovering something that's important to him, I can make sure that anything that I'm exploring with him or whatever is aligned with those. So there's real value there. But I ran the risk of not being liked, of being thought of as intrusive or whatever. Now, of course, I use lots of softeners and rapport and that sort of stuff to mediate that process. But what I'd encourage you, and this is very much something that Peter says in a different way, but I think it's still the same message, is it's about having the courage to go through the stuff that they're afraid of answering, or that you're afraid of asking. Often, for me anyway, the most impertinent question, the one that pops into my mind and then my internal dialogue goes, "You mustn't ask that. Oh, damn, you already have." That's the one that gets the results, because, you've got intuition, which is powerful. So thank you for that. I got to that sooner than I had anticipated, but I trust that intuition.